It's Monday here in Australia, the 23rd of June, and haven't yet checked on the net to see if the rest of the world...
Well, you better check on it.
Yes.
Got to see if Simpsons was right. After all, the Simpsons program is a preconditioning of the masses to accept the fact that they're all going to get blown up, which is what it's all about.
Okay.
What's that one?
Oh, this is from Wayne in the UK. When unearthly and violent, now I see how important it was for your angels to wake me from my sleep. This is what we've just been talking about. Now, this is just a really impromptu show this morning. It's very early in the morning. It's actually 7:44 a.m. and this is an off-the-cuff recording. Who knows where the conversation will go. But Yah told me just minutes ago that last night he was had a number in his head over and over and over, and when that happens you can't sleep and you do everything in which way with a number. Now, take it over. What have we...
Well, with my... you might recall that, especially if you've watched the videos, that when I entered Canada, the date of my passport was the 3rd of April, which of course is just another number that repeats itself as the date of the crucifixion. This was in 1963. And what it spelled out for me at that time was the start of the crucifixion of travelling the world. And I go into Canada in 1967 after being to Africa and seeing the appalling situation that happens to people in Africa. And as it turns out, the social insurance number I got, 709018386, was going through my head last night. And I didn't recognise it as I was sleeping. It just kept on going over and over and over again. Well, what it turns out to be, you take the 709, you do a square root of that, because any numbers I get, of course, it's got to be more complex than just a straight number. So you do all that sort of thing. And the 386 is to literally raise from the dead to immortality. But the numbers turned out to be an observation of what Canada was. Now, Canada, in a sense, is worse than the United States because they should know what the evil of the United States is. And yet they go along with it. So the present Prime Minister is child molester, homosexual, into all sorts of deviant things. And that is the common thread throughout the governments of the world. And what it basically was saying to me to do the numbers, dates-wise and so forth, and to count it all up. And then it would be the cessation of the earth. So in other words, the earth is not going to go on the way it is. So it is either a complete annihilation of the earth and start again. So we go back to a mature creation, to the Adam and Eve story, and start right from scratch. But this time, there will be no free will. In other words, you won't be able to create without the express approval of the Creator himself. So that is what's happened in the world, and that is the message of my social insurance number of Canada. And of course, the date I entered Canada was the 4th of January in 1967. Now, that's a very important number because in Australia it's the 5th. Now, on the 5th was the date that my mother was conceived. And it is also the date when the earth and the sun is closest together. Now, at the date of the that I entered, or got my passport rather, the speed of the earth, when it's closest to the sun, is going the fastest, and when it's furthest from the sun is the 4th of July. So there's a message there, United States, 4th of July. But on the date of the crucifixion, it was slowing down to the point of the resurrection, which was on the 5th, and in Australia it was just the 6th, and the speed passed the number 66,666.666 repeatum. And of course I've worked it out before, but I haven't told anybody about it. So here it is that I get this passport, I go to Africa, I work with the Africans, see how they exist, and it is totally appalling. The diseases are rampant. The cures for all these diseases, of course, I was able to determine later on in life when I locked horns with it. And then come to the horrifying conclusion that the diseases of the earth are primarily, not only are they man-made, they're animal or manipulated splices of animal viruses like the AIDS virus, which you can go to your computer right now. Just flick off for a second while you listen to us and Google 464-7773, and that number is the patent number for the AIDS virus. So with the supercomputers they use, like Google uses these supercomputers for search engines, what they didn't realise when they introduced these supercomputers into the internet system was that it would backdoor the United States Patent Office. So you just put a number in like that and it'll come right out and tell you when the application was applied for and then what date it was granted. So this is the horrifying world we live in.
Excuse me.
Thank you for that.
It's the morning. I haven't yet sneezed my quote. Have I?
No, she wakes me up in the morning sneezing and...
Oh, that is not true every morning. Just the occasional morning. And now if I get up and leave, it's because I have to sneeze. You better leave a clear pathway. This house is like an echo chamber.
Yeah,
so it wouldn't matter.
If
I went down to the back there, you'd hear it louder.
I'll give you some idea. I'll turn the camera around, which a lot of you haven't seen. If you're going to watch this on YouTube, you could. So that's the view from the house here, and there's the little doggy walking around. We have a dog next door, which is a big, what kind of dog is it?
Rottweiler.
A Rottweiler.
Mara.
Yeah, it's named Myra.
Mara. Is it Mara Bitter?
And it has the habit of this dreadful yowl. It's just not a bark, it's sort of yodels.
Oh, you mean the other side?
Oh, that's that one. I'm getting to that.
Mm.
Now, ironically, everywhere I go, for example, when we went to Italy, we stay in this lovely people's house. Now, the lady there, she's 1.694 weeks younger than I. And that, of course, is Emmanuel. And then her sister, another number that was...
537.
537, which is in weeks. Or days. The older sister, 537 days, I think it was, younger than I, and that's the length into the King's Chamber. And then, if you studied all of my videos, 537 pops up all the time. And for example, from where I was born, if you drop down to the latitude of the house I ended up with Mary Magdalene in Victoria, Nell Street, Greensboro, and then you draw a line around the Earth at that latitude, it's 31680 kilometres, and it's 5813 kilometres from the South Pole. And that's the height of the finished capstone in place of the Great Pyramid. And you go from that point in the sea where the two intersect, and it is 537 kilometres. So everything about my life on this planet has been thoroughly laid out in a mathematical formula that is so astounding that coincidentally you could not comprehend. This is possible when you're dealing with the Almighty, because a human being, although you're given the ability and the gift of creation and free will, you have no idea of the combined thought of the most brilliant scholars in the world that's ever lived would come up with this type of idea that the Creator is so mathematically perfect that it would be able to bring children to the earth, reluctant as they are, and of course hate me and so forth with a passion, because of the mothers in particular that have lied about me. My first wife, for example, has lied to my children, and there's an odd thing I find. When I'm lied about, I don't really react. I just listen, because I don't want to argue the point. So whatever, give an example. My mother, when she passed away, it was the same date as her sister's birthday. Also, her grandchild Tanya and grandson Michael. And I was sitting at the reception afterwards by myself, and there's all the relatives, and there's my former wife, the first wife, and she's got a very effervescent personality. You'd never believe that she would be such a low-life town harlot that would put a prostitute to shame. Right. I actually had more respect for a prostitute, because at least they're at least they're honest. Anyhow, she was flitting around being lovely to all my relatives, right? Now, my auntie, old auntie, was sitting there, and I sat down beside her, and she looked at me, and she was in her 80s, and she apologised because she thought she looked so ugly. But she had beautiful suntan skin, nice and smooth, and she was getting frail, of course. And I said to her, "Well, Auntie Edna, I think you're gorgeous, beautiful, and you'll always be beautiful to me no matter what." So she's sitting there talking to me. She said, "I never did believe what Eileen was saying about you," because she knew me from a baby, right? She was sort of my favourite aunt in that sense of being just a lovely old lady, lovely person. And she'd seen some things as a child that I was able to do. And being an intelligent woman, she recognised the things that I could do as a very small boy. For example, I went to her house one day with my mother, and I was about 4, I guess. And she had prepared a table with a piece of paper on it and a comic book. And what I used to do, I hated cheating. So she had laid the comic book out and gave me a pencil, and she said, "Do you think you could copy that?" And I said, "Well, I just did it." Right? What I hadn't realised at the time when I started doing that, which I wouldn't have done had I known, was we're being invaded by a little doggy. Right. Hasta la vista. What was that all about?
Oh, school children out front with other dogs and cats.
Well, you just let her out the back, she's going around the front again.
No, I'll feed her now.
So I started to copy, and that is the entire page, like Donald Duck or something, I don't know. And, you know, it has the little clouds with a pointer and a duck speaking and so forth. So I did that. And then she came out with about 6 women from the lounge room. They'd been looking at me from the lounge room. and watch me doing what I did. Because she used to boast that I could, and she kept all the papers, and she probably still had them somewhere in the house, which I would love to have got my hands on. Maybe my cousin's got it. But you could take the one sheet of paper that I'd copied and lay it over the comic book and hold it up to the light, and the light coming through, it would be like a photograph on top of the other one. It was perfect. So this is the kind of thing I was doing as a child, as a 4-year-old. And she had boasted to these women that she must have been in some sort of a church or club or something. And that they said it's impossible that this child could not have done that. So she challenged them and arranged for me to be there on this particular day and gave me the piece of paper, and I did it, which was common for me. I've done it all the time. And to have it letter perfect, the cloud shape and the cartoon characters perfect, even to the lines drawn of each, as you know, as a cartoons or a comic book, you got little squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was. And that's what she did. So she said to me at the funeral, she said, I know you. You could not have done what Eileen said you had done. Now, Eileen had boasted to me that she would turn my family against me, and she did. And she also turned my children against me. So rather than, I never did find out what she did. I didn't want to ask because it'd be something dreadful. So as it turns out, to this day, my children hate me. But I'm not here to win over friends, relatives. If they don't know who I am and they don't recognise me, I'm not inclined to prove it. However, we've reached the point today where I've now made my decision on what to do with the earth. And the angels are coming in. As far as I'm concerned, the earth is going to be destroyed. Simple as that. So go and get yourself a piece of dirt and have a look at it. This is going to be the last bit you're going to see. And keep that in mind from now on, that the moment is approaching where the earth is going to be utterly destroyed. So that's my decision on it. It's not worth... I can take the children and bring them back as a mature creation, and those children will be back on the earth as if Adam and Eve had kicked off, but this time in a mature creation as it was with Adam and Eve. So that's my message for today, that it ain't going to be a happy. I've had enough. Of all the people I've met on the earth, I could count on my left hand. That's personal relationships, so forth. And the ones closest to me, it's my own family, are a complete and utter abomination. And it ain't going to ever happen again to another human being. No man will have to suffer what I've had to suffer in this life. You think the crucifixion was a dreadful thing? Well, it was, but it's only 3 hours or so. And the crucifixion this time round has been all my life. So I'm not happy. So, all you lovely people out there who are listening to this, you can rejoice in the sense that this ain't going on, and you'll be part of it. So the earth will be destroyed, and it'll be a blink of an eye. And the angels are coming in. We've been looking at the stars again last night, and there's this Kachina that's coming in, and sparkling away, beautiful colours. There's 2 of them. There's red and the blue, and that's the Hopi prophecy. Yeah, so that's what my social insurance number for Canada was all about. Tax file number is what it is, where you recorded like an animal. No more of that. Anyhow, where was we? What was you talking about?
I was thinking about Joel listening to the young lady from Utah, I think she is, Rad Chick, who's been doing a really good job on keeping track of the damage to aircraft, planes having to land as an emergency. The amount of small aircraft that have crashed, there was another one that I saw yesterday, have crashed after takeoff. They barely get off the ground, they crash, and that's how the Rockefeller was killed last week or whatever.
Well, what happens with the small aircraft, which probably won't be made known, but it's all the ailerons and tail section and so forth, it's all joined with cables. And these cables, of course, with the radiation become brittle. So what happens, you might have your joystick or your controls, and that goes down and operates cables that goes out to your tail and ailerons and so forth. Well, they go around pulleys, and because it's got to be direct along the fuselage of the plane. Well, anywhere that it's gone around a pulley and it's been flying in the air, these all become brittle. So you can be flying along and all of a sudden you pull the stick back, or you have to make a left or right turn. In this case, the planes are taking off, so I've done a lot of flying myself. So as you're taking off, you've got your flaps down and you're throttled up, and you pull in the, in my plane it was a joystick, but you pull in the controls back, and next thing, you snap, and you go nosedive into the deck. That's the end of you. You've got no control. That's what's happening. Yes,
so that's happening there, but apparently Rad Chick was naming the Hollywood celebrities who are tweeting amongst themselves about doctor's appointments and what they've come down with in tumours and cancers and things. She has daughters that keeps track of what they tweet to each other, and Joel just walked out stunned as he said she was naming name after name after name because these people spend so much time flying.
Well, that's right. I mean, they've got to go from one point to another for an interview or for a show or if they're a singer or something like that. And they go by plane. And Mr. Bean, a very funny fellow from England, he was in this small plane, and the pilot passed out for half an hour. And they finally revived him to land the plane. So this is the kind of thing that's going on. Now, it's not been reported that much because the media is controlled. They don't want you to know. But the big aircraft, what's happening is that the pilots are flying at these high altitudes and they're in radiation all the time. So you're going at 600 miles an hour through a constant flow of radiation from one continent to the other. And it doesn't matter whether it's from Japan or not, because they're having experienced pilots dying and retiring early and illnesses. And there were 1,700 flights just on one commercial airliner there, internal, that, and they've now embarked upon hundreds of youngsters that want to become pilots. So they have these Japanese young people learning to be pilots. And of course, the whole country's dead. So, getting back to my social insurance number of Canada, that's what it said, that the world is dead, to raise from the dead. Right.
And how many times did that... Let's spend some time, we've got 35 minutes where we just recount our adventures, if you like, as we've gone into different nations to raise people from the dead.
Right.
But thinking about, remember Fiji?
Yeah.
That day we got, I got left behind. I was walking behind you from the beach. We had a cabin overlooking the coral sea on a coral cliff. It was an amazing place.
Yeah, it's
lovely,
about,
rosy.
About 30 or 40 feet high and straight down. Like if you walked out at night with your eyes closed, you could end up in a very, very sorry situation. Straight off the bloody edge, right?
Right. But anyway, stairs down to the beach where we had been lots of times. And this particular day, walking back, Yah was in front of me, and there's only one way to go, one lot of stairs that you can go to get back to our cabin at the top. Well, this day, I don't know what happened, but he was walking...
You enter from the beach, you enter into a cave, and the cave has steps in it. So it's quite spooky.
You've got to walk through that.
And you walk through that. There's about 20 steps through that. Then it goes to a level that sort of flattens off a bit, and then you go another set of steps up to the cabin that we was at.
Right. Well, I ended up, because I was behind him, he kind of got out of sight, and I ended up in front of this sheer rock wall where I couldn't get any further, yet there was no other way to go. So I'm thinking, this is really weird. It's as if the stairs had... Anyway,
it's like a rock wall materialised in front of where the stairs were.
I walked back
the second section.
I walked back a few stairs, thinking this is bizarre, and then I started again to go that only way that I could go. And in the meantime, Yah's waiting for me at the top, and I could see him from where I was. So the second time I could get through up to the top, but I didn't change direction. It was exactly the same way. Bottom line is, we did the numbers at the time that this happened, and it was the world of the dead.
Yeah.
Now, when we were in Egypt, the emphasis, of course, is on selling tourists, and we, in spite of what we tried to, we're not tourists. We weren't there to have a good time. We were there to see the pyramid, the altar to the Lord in the midst of Egypt. However, I ended up spending money on their oils, their essential oils made from the flowers. But anyway, bottom line is, I ended up with a bottle of lotus oil. Now, he told me at the time that lotus oil was used to embalm the dead, the mummies, and that kind of thing, and because it absorbs odours really well. I was actually using it as a deodorant. It was awesome. Only the smallest amount. Anyway, it was really effective at absorbing odours. On our flight from, where was it, Luxor, back to Cairo, I had a separated bag with these things in it, and each of the oils were contained within that bottle of oil was shattered when I got the bag, which was a hard-walled bag. It was quite bizarre. It was shattered and it had spilled. Anyway, I couldn't help but thinking it was embalming for the world of the dead, because...
Well, the way it exploded or was smashed and shattered, there was no way that could happen, because it was, even if the luggage was roughly handled, there's no way it could have happened, because it was in a container, and it was a moulded container in a box inside the suitcase. So there's no way it could be smashed, but it was totally smashed.
So it was like pouring out an anointing oil for the dead, and that's exactly what we feel about Egypt today. Reading with El-Sisi taken over, won the presidency, he knows that the Christ is back. All of the information we were told was sent to him, and there was a reaction. It was like, how many people know this? And his excuse at the time was he needed 3 or 4 months for the country to stabilise. Well, now it's stabilised. They've got him in, and now the country... Well, headlines are that he's got the King of Saudi Arabia coming to visit him in Egypt. Well, it's the Saudi regime. They're Jews to begin with, and they've been backing the slaughter in Syria, causing all of the instability with the money that they have in the region. However, they were able to prop up El-Sisi after he got rid of Morsi, And so whatever it is, whether there's this...
Now, I should add that the entire country is financed by the Saudi Arabians. And one of the things I noticed, like being very interested in construction to see how they build things, you'll see a building, and then this is universal. No matter where you go in Egypt, it's the same. You've got the concrete flat slab, a build brick on it, then another concrete slab for the roof, and then they've got these rebars sticking up from the columns that are supporting it. This is for the next floor. When they get the money, they pay off the first loan, and they'll get the loan again to do another floor. And of course, then they'll rent that out. But every building that you look at, they've got these rebars sticking up. It's bloody horrible to see it from a builder's point of view, to see these rusty rebars sticking up through the roof of each of these smaller buildings. And it's all throughout. And one of the most annoying features about Egypt is that if 10 families get together, they build a bloody mosque. Well, the mosque itself, where we were staying in Luxor, was on the other side of the Nile River. And you can hear this yodeling across the bloody Nile of these night and day of praying.
5 times a day.
5 times a day. And they don't do it they do it with a loudspeaker. They're like, it's bad enough being inside the building. But they have a huge speaker system outside. It'll go for, hundreds and hundreds of metres of this loud, bloody yowling on to a God that does nothing for the individual. Because the God that they pray to is the Jewish God, and they don't realise that, but it is all Talmud. And a God of vengeance and hate and dictator. There's no love in it. There's no love in the religion. You don't get love from the God, which is, in their words, Biala. So within the eyes, as we looked across the river, downriver, there would be 13 of these huge public buildings, and some of them might be 200 feet high or so, and all got loudspeakers, and they're all yodeling on at the same bloody time. So when we returned to Luxor, at least across the river, it was reasonably quiet. But in the time we was away, they'd built another mosque. So here's this lovely, quiet little
getaway
place. The next thing it starts, I said, oh shit.
Oh, so, the first time we went there, we fled the noise of the Giza village. Absolutely insane. Yes, so they'd built a mosque right behind us this time. Now, out of there. And then there was the donkey braying, of course.
Yeah, the donkey was bad enough, but it's amazing. What I was saying, getting back to this dog next door here, we have a little dog on the left-hand side here. A lovely old couple owns this thing, and it's deaf as a bean. And it has the loudest screech. It's like it was being butchered when we first heard it. So what the hell is that?
Actually, we captured it on video.
It'll start in a minute, don't worry. And then we got this thing next door. It moves in, right? So what I have been able to do, I bought 4 dog silencers, and these are loud, audible things for a doggy, but you can't hear it. And so you put a battery in it and put it on the window. Well, there's one there. There it is there, there's one. So you press that button, and of course the sound comes out the end of it here, and of course the dog can hear it. Like that one out there, our dog. Look,
yeah, she's moving now.
What the hell is that? Right. And that's going out. Look, she's heading out, going around in front. So there's that one, and then I've got one on the window up here, which points at the dog next door. And this thing, night and day, would be yodeling on, and this horrible screech. So that cured the problem. Now the dog hardly ever makes a bark. So I recommend it entirely, but as the world's going to be destroyed, you haven't got much time. So when we go to Italy, there's 5 dogs next door. There's a wire fence, 2 dogs, a big long-haired German Shepherd and a small yappy thing. And then 2 dogs would come from up the street, and the dog of the owner old thing, could hardly walk, but it would come to life, and these dogs would run back and forwards along the fence for hours at a time barking. So here's we're trying to do our studies and so forth, and do our uploads from Italy, and then trying to get in, see the old Pope Benedict, and have to face the threats of death from the likes of Francis, who sent us emails. We were going to get the emails out and read them, weren't we?
Oh, that was a little while ago.
Wasn't that your plan for today?
Not really. There's no plan for today. No plan.
Well, the idea, what I thought was a better plan rather than just...
no plan? Oh, well, I can find them.
No plans at all. Was to read some of these communications between the Pope and I, and then the threat from Francis, and then George Ganswain, who was the right-hand man of the Pope and like a son to him, and he was the ultimate traitor. He was the man that was with the Pope, with Father Giuseppe, and who was with him for 8 years, and he's the man who did all the communication with the setting up the internet for him. But the old fella, he would write everything that he's ever done. He'd write in a pen, an ink or pencil, and then Father Giuseppe would type it, and that would become the communication to the church.
Well, he wrote the Apostolic Letter. He hand-wrote the Apostolic Letter, but his Benedict was at one point typing to you when he was communicating.
He can use a type.
Yes,
he is familiar with the computer in that sense, that because what he was doing, first off, when we started talking, he didn't believe. And
there's the dog. And the screech.
Isn't that extraordinary?
You said it would start in a moment, and it did. 6564 views of the Apostolic Letter.
So anyhow, the Pope Benedict is such a lovely man. He was unable to do anything about the filth in the church, although he had defrocked hundreds of priests that were either accused, suspected, or whatever. What happened was that even during the time of Pope John Paul II, he thought he was a lovely man. Well, Pope John Paul II was a Jew, and he was the one that introduced Vatican II. And Vatican II destroyed Vatican I, which was a beautiful thing. And it made it caused a great schism in people who are in the church. The average guy, a woman, they just go to church, or even if they don't go to church, it means nothing to them. But people who are into it realise what the Vatican II was all about, and it was basically... Hello, camera's gone off. All right, we're talking about the...
Yes, go on, it's recording.
How come it's not showing up?
Because...
Well, it's not recording. What is it?
There it is, it is.
Oh, right. Okay, so, while these dogs are yodeling around in Italy, we end up buying a small... Now, this is a strange thing. You couldn't do this in any other country, I suppose, but they had the sports shop there, and you could go and buy a CO2 or spring-loaded pistol that looks exactly like... If you walked into a bank with it, they would certainly hand over the money, put it that way. There was lifelike Berettas and Colt 45s and you name it, hanging in the window. And when I went in there, I said, look, I want something to frighten the dogs, right? Because the idea is to go and put a can up on the fence, and when the dogs start howling, just to fire a few slugs into this can, right? Well, as it turned out, these are 6mm, like same as a bullet, and a little steel bullet you can buy, all plastic. Well, the plastic one was good because you could sting the dog in the arse and they'd take a run, right? Or you could get the steel bullet, which would hit with such force that it would injure the dog. So I thought, you can't do that, right? So I started to practice shooting because I was in a pistol club years ago, and I was getting to be quite a good shot with a pistol. And so you can imagine, say, go out the front of your house, across the road, say 30, 40 metres, there'd be a can or something there that I'd fire the steel pellet at and hit it, and it would make the sound, right, and frighten the dogs, and off they'd go, right? That's what I'm trying to point out is that no matter where we've been, there's dogs surrounding me. It is extraordinary, to say the least. And I was starting to get the shits with it. I felt like shooting the bloody dogs after a while. But of course you can't do that, can you? But with a little plastic BB, well, from that distance, by the time I got the dog, the velocity had slowed down and was just enough to frighten them. Right? So I'd give them a belt with one of those, and they'd sort of look up and then take off, right? So they got used to the sound of me opening a window ready to shoot bastards, right? So off they'd go. But that's what we put up with in Italy, 5 dogs. Now, what I found amazing was that the neighbours and the people in the house that owned the house where we were at, put up with it. They're so nice. Right? Well, I'm about as nice as a fart in a christening. Right? Well, I get pissed off, that's it. So there is a bit of a message there. I'm pissed off with the world, and I have no problem switching it off. Now, when a pope turns around and recognises for the first time in recorded history, Christ is back. Yet, the Antichrist that came shortly afterwards, after the conclave, was held after the Pope had recognised me. And they had a meeting after he was elected. And I said, whoever walks out of the conclave is going to be the Antichrist. Well, of course, that's what happened. And that's what Francis is. Now, Francis himself is a Jesuit, which, if you don't know, Google the Jesuit oath and read it. It's a long, lengthy oath that they swear that is so appalling that it is totally Talmudic Jewish in origin, that no sane human being could ever dream up such an abomination of an oath that every Jesuit who is a priest, Jesuit priest, and there's 18,000 of them or more around the world, and here's this bastard that is now the Pope, who has sworn an oath that he would take a knife and tear open the womb of a woman, haul the baby out, and then smash its head against a wall. That is the oath of a Jesuit. Now, that is going to be eliminated off the face of the planet, and everyone with it. The soul is that there is a warning in the New Testament, and it says, fear him that can destroy both body and soul in hell. Now, what more dire circumstances could exist where these Jesuits and Jews with a Talmud that all originated in Babylon are remember what I'm saying, fear him that can kill both body and soul in hell, right? I just told you that's what I'm going to do. That these are reincarnated souls from the past that bring back the demons with them, and they accumulate, so you get 7 chances to get it right. Many have taken 2 chances to get it right. These are your saints. Or 1. So it's even higher than the sainthood, if you like, the elders. Then everyone else who hasn't got it right keep on reincarnating, and you become a greater bastard than you were before. So these souls now are totally demonised. So the soul is the little child that starts off, and then is demonised by the devils that are waiting to inhabit them throughout their lifetime. And this is what reincarnation is all about. So you can, of free will, cast out these demons or become worse. Now, in this modern age, there's all the temptations that the Jews have invented through Hollywood and television and pornography and drugs and cell phones that beam radiation into your head. But there's a fellow that's on the internet. He's a Finnish electrician that worked. Now, electricians are particularly smart when it comes to the trades. The electricians are your smart people. And he was an electrician who worked in a nuclear reactor. And he noticed that over time, all of his buddies were coming down with cancers and dying, and very few reached, well, none, he said, reached retirement. So he decided to get out of it and become a advocate for banning nuclear energy. But he's a particularly smart fellow, and he was talking about Fukushima and how all of the nuclear plants that have been built around the world run at a loss. In other words, it's so expensive a operation, yet there is over 500 of them throughout the world. And Albert Einstein, on his deathbed, talked about nuclear facilities, and he said there's no alternative, but it will kill everybody. That's what Albert Einstein had come up with. Now, I remember we talked about Albert Einstein before, and although he was taught the Bible and the Talmud, he went to a Catholic school as a child, and his parents were not particularly religious, right? Because they were smart, which evident by Albert Einstein. And he was enthralled by, at the age of 32, he got hold of a Bible and decided to read about Jesus, because he hadn't been taught in the Catholic school, though he went to school all his young education life in a Catholic school. Learned nothing about Jesus. That's got to tell you that the church, I did the same thing, because I went to a Catholic school for half my education. Well, I didn't have any education at all, except learning what homosexuality was all about. And he was enthralled by the Nazarene, the luminous figure. Now, that's what should be taught and will be taught in the world to come. But as I say, everything's preordained. I'm here to do what I've done and be recognised by a Pope, and that's one little shining light in my life, and the world of the young, to see that the old man has actually come to the earth to destroy and to save at the same time. So you got some letters there to read?
Well, yes.
Just pick one at random.
Well, we'll read here. This is from Francis after.
What was the headline on it?
Father Giuseppe Ciavello and Sister Maria della Rosa arrested April the 3rd, 2013. Because of the time difference, it was in the morning here, but it was still April the 3rd there. There was 8 hours behind. I thought it was April the 2nd, but it's not. Hello, these are the inspectors of Pope Francis. This is an update requested by Giuseppe Ciavello when asked for any final requests as a Catholic priest. The following updates are occurring at this moment. 1. This email no longer belongs to the Pope Emeritus and will be deleted permanently after this update message is sent. 2. Giuseppe Ciavello is no longer a Catholic priest and has been relocated. We are not telling you where he is. Number 3, Sister Maria della Rosa is still a Catholic nun but has been moved to a convent outside of Italy. We are not saying where she is exactly. 4, Archbishop George has sworn not to speak a word of you and is forced not to listen to what you say. 5, the new pontifical household will consist of Pope Francis' former investigators. They are not priests and will tend to his needs. Along with only a few nuns, he will have no contact with any of you. 6. Monsignor Giovanni Rossini is no longer a Catholic Monsignor priest and has been relocated for sending in Christum Credunt. We are not saying where he is. Then many thanks with the coat of arms of Francesco. So that was April the 3rd, the anniversary of the crucifixion, and then we were sent a notice of the death of Giuseppe on April the 13th. He was taken to Sicily, a house in Sicily where he was with a friend of his, had been moved in at the same time. They were both actually under house arrest, watched by the thugs hired by Francis. Now, it was Georg Ganswain who organised all of this, as it turns out. Sister Maria Della Rosa did leave the convent. I have read the letter once before, called Good Morning Francis. It was read in December before we left Italy. The Sister Maria described the events of that night, and indeed it was Georg Ganswain who opened the door to the 5.
Have you got the letter? Can you find it?
The Maria letter. It is. It'll take a bit for me to find it. I know where I can get it.
One thing we've noticed that you have a program you might be using, it might be mail.com or something like that, then there'll be a change to it. And then you just get used to that, then they'll change it again. And then it is a constant battle to maintain any continuity. So what you end up doing is screen capturing everything, and you screen capture that what you're doing now, isn't it?
Yeah. There's nothing here. It's all changed with the new format.
So what we've done here is just with the computer, where you save the letter into Word, for example, and then save that onto a hard drive outside your computer.
3 minutes left.
I'm going to keep going.
All right, this is Maria Anna Della Rosa. You probably remember me as Sister Maria. Sister Della Rosa, if you don't recall who I am, I must then jog your memory. I used to be an aide to His Holiness Benedict XVI, the Pope Emeritus. I knew him ever since he moved to Rome as a cardinal under Pope John Paul II. I took care of his residence and office when he was chosen to be prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, a very important position. I heard about you, Lord, and your reincarnation into earth back in March of this year. Father Giuseppe Ciavello, an aide to the pontifical household, had told me about you and who you were once the Pope Emeritus acknowledged the good news. That, I must say, had to be the happiest time of my life. I unfortunately no longer aid the Pope Emeritus. I was fired, along with all the clerics involved in the communications between you and His Holiness, except for Archbishop Georg Ganswain, who remained aiding the Pope Emeritus and acting as prefect of the pontifical household for the new Pope Francis. I hope that jogged your memory. This happens all the time. I hope that jogged your memory if you have forgotten, as I know the Christ must care for so many people of his pastoral flock. I know you may have questions that are due to be answered since the fiasco in April, so I will respond to them. What happened on April the 3rd, 2013, when Pope Francis had secretly fired the Pope Emeritus's staff and had kept the Pope Emeritus hostage in his home at Castel Gandolfo. This is the story from my perspective. Let's finish it here and do another recording.
No,
reading.
Keep going.
Okay. It was late at night and I was doing the laundry in the basement when I heard that the arrangement to announce to the world the truth of Christ via television was suddenly cancelled. Father Giuseppe had told me that Pope Francis had asked his own secretary, Monsignor Alfred Zurub, to make that clear to RAI TV. When I got upstairs to the Pope Emeritus' office, he was on the phone getting upset, his face red. I had never seen him so angry before. We had actually made a pre-recording of the announcement once the Pope Emeritus' Apostolic Letter had been sent to Monsignor Rossini. When Pope Benedict had resigned from the papacy, he promised the world to show a live television broadcast of the Shroud of Turin. Once he had understood you were the Christ, he made arrangements to make the announcement right after that broadcast. I will reveal the parts I remember from that announcement. Pope Francis instead made his own type of recording talking about some useless deal. Anyway, when Pope Benedict was getting upset over the phone, I prayed about it, asking you why this was to happen. As I finished my prayer, RAI TV had hung up on the Pope Emeritus, which made him extremely frustrated. Father Giuseppe was trying to calm him down and talk to him. Then I had been asked to get him some water. The kitchen was downstairs, so I opened the fridge to find him a water bottle. Then I hear banging from the rear entrance to the papal household. I didn't open it. Instead, I asked who it was and asked them to stop banging. Only private personnel are allowed even to be in the Vatican gardens, where the rear entrance was. It was a man at the door who said, "This is a private work issued by Pope Francis." I found that odd. Why would Francis even send anyone to see Benedict? He himself thought Benedict was crazy for believing in the returned Christ. So I told them, which would have cost me my job anyway, to go away because Benedict wasn't in the mood to see anyone, especially at that time in the day. So they left. Soon after, I hear a light tap on the door as I was bringing the finished laundry upstairs. I asked who it was, and the guy said, "Archbishop George." The voice was his, so I made the biggest mistake of my entire life. I opened the door for that traitor. Then he comes in and holds the door so that 5 men dressed in black can run upstairs to the Pope Emeritus' office. I hear fighting from the upstairs and try to stop them from harming anyone, especially the Pope. Archbishop George stops me from warning everyone upstairs that he is a traitor and whispered into my ear, "You're going to be Maltese now, sister." This indicated I was going to be transferred to Malta, which I will explain further in this letter. Then 2 carabinieri take me out in the back into a police car and drive me away to a heliport without even saying a last goodbye to the Pope Emeritus or Father Giuseppe, whom I never saw since that night. When we arrived at the Vatican, they dropped me off at the papal heliport, the same used to bring Pope Benedict to Castel Gandolfo when he resigned. If you look at the coverage of Benedict arriving in Castel Gandolfo, you will see a heliport with greenery that is not far from the Pope's residence. This took me to an area in Rome I was unfamiliar with. There was a small jet waiting for me there, and that took me to Valletta, Malta. On the flight to Valletta, they forced a pill down my throat, which made me fall into a sleep so deep it lasted for hours and hours. Then I woke up at a convent in Valletta with a bunch of other nuns who spoke only Maltese and English. I never had a chance to speak my native language of Italian for a while. The rest of my time there I will explain in order after the major questions are finished being answered. What do I remember from Pope Emeritus Benedict's official announcement broadcast? I just remember a bit. The announcement, of course, was chosen to be in Latin, the language of the Church, just as his resignation announcement was. The beginning was something like this: "Dear brothers and sisters, He went on saying how he met you, etc. I announce to you a great joy. The Messiah, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Christ Jesus has returned since the 11th of January, taking the name of Brian Leonard Golightly Marshall. Worship him, love him. I remember he showed the image he received of your face and the Shroud of Turin. He then introduced his Apostolic Letter, and then the announcement ended with the Latin prayer he wrote for the Universal Church, reflecting you. I pray that prayer every hour I am awake. After the announcement, every video you uploaded on YouTube since you met the Pope Emeritus was scheduled to be broadcast as well. I wish it would have worked out. Instead of the media revealing the truth by the Pope's words, they carried it up by whatever means necessary. A continuation of the situation in Valletta. I lived in Valletta since the late evening of April the 3rd till early morning of June 15th, 2013. I continued my work as a nun living in a convent. As soon as I had fully understood what had happened to me, and as soon as I had come to terms with it, I decided I didn't want to be a nun anymore. I decided that I didn't want to live under the fake church of lies and falsehood which Pope Francis is starting to invent. I didn't want that. I wanted you, the true Christ, reincarnated. On June the 10th, I sent a letter to my new Mother Superior, a very nice lady who didn't know about the situation I was in, but understood people and their emotions. She accepted my letter, and I left the religious life 4 days later, leaving Malta a day after that. I moved to Mobile, Woodbury County, Iowa, in the USA. Nobody would ever suspect that I was there. Because Pope Francis is sexist, he probably thought that I wouldn't need any guards watching me because I'm a harmless, fat nun. Why would I need anyone to watch me? Think again, asshole. I lived there in Mobile from June 16th to October 20th, 2013, and I had just recently moved into a bigger town of Sioux City. I lived in Mobile and prayed constantly there. I helped the poor and started a small organisation called Saved Under Brian Foundation. Our mission was to pray for Brian Marshall to save humanity and to save the church, and also to help lower the poverty rate in our area. The group was forced to end because we had no permit to collect money from people in order to help our cause, as I was told we were to have one by locals. So when I moved to Sioux City, I had access to a computer from my neighbour. I used it only to watch your videos on YouTube. I have learned all of what you have taught, and so I decided to handwrite this letter so that my neighbour could send it to you via her email address, because I don't know how to use email very well. Giuseppe Civello, dead or not, Monsignor Rossini. I have learnt about what happened to Giuseppe through your YouTube videos. Giuseppe, from what I recall, actually does have a friend named Raniero Calvo who lives in Pacino, Sicily. I don't think it was him sending you messages, though. I'm not sure of what parts are real and what parts aren't from that story. I don't know if Giuseppe is still alive, even though I hope he is. Unfortunately, I might assume he's dead, given the situation he was in. Monsignor Rossini, I have never met before in my life. He was a friend of Giuseppe, not me. I have no idea where he is, but I'm curious to know why you, Christ, do not know where he is, with all due respect. The Pope Emeritus is alive. I know you will protect him always. So in conclusion, I wish all the best for you in your mission to save the world. I'm thinking of moving to a bigger city just in case Pope Francis is out searching for me. If you decide to read this publicly via YouTube, they probably will try to find me and kidnap me. But I always have faith in your immaculate protection and care. If you decide not to, I ask that you please tell your apostles that I love them and pray for them, and Mother Mary also. Lord Jesus, please know that I love you and I pray in your holy name always. Lord, I request one thing from you. As I taught the poor and the children in my area about you, they made a request to one day see this. Many other people also talked about this too. The most spectacular thing to see would be the Lord Jesus Christ celebrating Holy Mass. The Holy Mass of all time would be Brian Leonard Golightly Marshall celebrating it. Would it be possible for you to celebrate Holy Mass filmed so it can go on the computer for all humanity to see? It would be so beautiful. I tear up just imagining it. Can you please make it possible? It would also be a symbol of hope and joy, a symbol of peace and love. It would be glorious. Brian Leonard Golightly Marshall is God. Amen. With love, Maria Anna Della Rosa, Friday, October 25th, 2013.
October 25th.
Yes.
That was the date my nephew was shot dead in 2002 when we had put together a cancer clinic in Melbourne. And I received a phone call from a senator's secretary from Canberra, the nation's capital. Asked me if I was Christ. I said yes. And he then said, if you don't stop doing what you're doing, those above us will kill you. And I said, well, I've been trying for a long time. I'm not worried about that. So that's just another phase of the demonstration that even the Australian government is totally corrupt. And no politician that was around at the time would not have known who I was, because I had written them a letter sent to them that was bounced back to 300 and some odd of the politicians throughout Australia. So I then arranged for it to be sent from Michigan City in Chicago, near Chicago, and my friends there sent it, and it got through to all of the politicians, because Asia, which is basically the Australian arm of the CIA, headed up by a Jew, of course, and had stopped all the communications that I was sending out. And indeed, all our communications are very, very suspect. YouTube comments and so forth never get through. And it managed to outsmart them by being sent from Michigan City in the US. Now that lady, Connie Becker, she's also disappeared. So
we've had others disappear too once they found us. Kelly Merkel
was coming out to stay with us. Apparently her family's wealthy, and she had asked us how she could transfer the sale of the proceeds of her house to Australia, and we had discussed that with her, but
told her to keep it, buy gold, something. But anyway, she ended up being taken away, committed into a mental asylum. She was there for a week, and then they cleared her, which means that they can't arrest her again. She got a message through to us that she was coming, and wanted to know where she could join us. But she had just been released from the asylum, and she was still drugged up, because as you know, they give them all kinds of drugs. So I told her to call back after she got over, had some sleep and got over the drugs. Well, she didn't, and she completely disappeared off the face of the earth. So who knows? I mean, that could have been an entire setup too. things are so bizarre around us. One man who was here and went back to the USA, he was detained and questioned for extensively. All he did was tell them, well, Yahweh's back. So it is very weird.
Yep.
We have to finish because Joel needs to process this.
All right. Okay,
and,
so hasta la vista.
Yes, it's over.